Hello and welcome to Oilers Live podcast. I've got with me tonight Mason, who goes by Nuge's Teddy Bear on Twitter. You can find him at Nuge Teddy on Twitter. Thanks for joining the show.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So I have had on Twitter a couple of people message me, private message me. They're excited about having you on the show, and we did have Ruel ask one question. Surprisingly, we did get a question, and that one was, and I'm kind of dying to know, why Nuge's Teddy Bear? How did this all get started?
Well, the answer to that is I was just at work one night, and this would have been back in Connor's rookie season. And I can't even remember if he was still hurt, but the year wasn't going well for us. And I wanted to create something, humorous to maybe distract people from what was going on. Yet another wasted season at the time. So, you see so many accounts now. Like there's Boring Monahan?
Yeah.
And I've seen like Radic Bonk's mullet and just stuff like that. And the idea came to me, and I thought, boy, this will write itself. Like, Nuge has always looked youthful, we'll say, and it just seemed like an easy thing to do. So the idea came to me.
Awesome. And were you on Twitter before, or is this your first go at it?
I had just started not too long before that, just a regular account. And so I was, I knew a bit about, how it worked and all that. And I just instantly thought, okay, this is the way to go. Let's see where this goes.
Yeah. And you're doing all right. You got close to 1,500 followers. Was it immediate? Did people start following right away?
I seem to remember the first night, like a fair amount of people started following, and it's been steady since.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got a lot of friends that know about your Twitter alias?
Believe it or not, out of the whatever I'm at now, there's maybe a handful that I know in real life.
Yeah.
Yeah. For whatever reason, my circle of friends, Twitter's not the go-to. So.
No, well, you know what? I think fortunate or unfortunate, no matter what side you're on, but Trump has certainly done us Twitter fans a big help.
Yeah, it's always entertaining.
Certainly on Twitter. Yeah, absolutely. So, are you a big Oilers fan? Were you a fan, through the decade of darkness, as we call it?
Oh, of course. Yeah, I've been a fan for as long as I can remember. Just hockey's always been a part of my life. I only played it organized for a couple years when I was 10 and 11, and stopped doing that. Didn't even put on a pair of skates for a decade, and then me and a couple buddies, just for several years now, that's how we spend our weekends, just at the outdoor rinks. And on the Oilers side of it, just always been a diehard and a fan of the sport in general. Like it's just not one team for me. It's closer to a religion than anything, and I think that's the case for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up in Edmonton as well. I find myself in Calgary now, but still a big fan. I was actually at the game, unfortunately, the Sabres game on Tuesday. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've been at two blowouts. I went to the playoff game last year in San Jose that we lost 8-0. And then, but you know what? Before everybody starts blaming me, because I know they will, I have been to winning games. I was at the 3-0 Battle of Alberta season opener. So
right on.
I did see Connors, and I make it out here at the Dome. This old barn over here. I make it out to every Battle of Alberta when they're in town. So all good.
But before they close that building, I need to go there once just to see,
Yeah, and we'll just talk hockey tonight, mostly about the Oilers, but let's talk about the Saddle Dome, because the first time I went last year to Rogers Place, it was a Battle of Alberta, and we were playing back-to-back Battle of Alberta games, I think. There was a reason anyway I had to come to the Dome right after. And I was here maybe at the Saddle Dome about 2 to 3 days afterwards. And it really just highlighted all of the oldness around it. And I've had a behind the scenes view of the Saddle Dome. I've been up in the press box. I've been, right over the scoreboard, which is hollow, by the way, because of the curve in the roof. They can't do a full scoreboard.
Really?
If you're in the press level seating here, you can't see the scoreboard actually. So it's just. Yeah, it's worth coming to see, and of course, there's a lot of history for Calgary with the Dome, and I remember it in the Olympics, and I remember some great games that have been here between the Oilers and the Flames.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but it's time.
Yeah, and you know what? I can't imagine any scenario where they don't get that new building, but. Maybe it takes a couple years still, but yeah, I don't have a goal to see a game in every building around the league, but it'd be nice to see what else is out there. I've been to the Honda Center in Anaheim, for a Ducks and Sharks game, and I think tickets were like $13. Absurd to me, of course, but it's. Sometimes it'll occur to me that I'll never be inside Rexall Place again. And it's a weird thought. So,
how many times did you get out to Rexall? Quite a bit?
Yeah, 1 or 2 games a season for many years. And then, last year I went to 4 in the new building. We won them all, including the, return of Brandon Manning, which was a great night. And then, haven't been to any this year though. And I probably won't do anything about that. I obviously with what's gone on, I can't bring myself to spend the money and risk a blowout or, I think this is the year to make a statement as a fan. And by all means, people who want to keep going, do it. That's fine. But, this might be the first year in a good long while that I don't go to a game.
So, you bring up something that I've been thinking a lot about because, you're on Twitter, I'm on Twitter. We see a lot of negative commentary on a daily basis. Some days you just have to mute it. And more often than not, I'm reading about people blocking other Twitter followers because they're just so negative. Mm-hmm. I try to stay, I started this podcast. This is episode 6. I try to stay really positive in terms of, the content and even what I do on Twitter. But I will tell you that, being at that Sabres game, that was one of the first times where I ever really questioned the dollars that I spent to be at a game.
I think it's fair to question that. They're making it really hard to stay positive, and whatever. It's a winning business, right? Results are nothing, but it's this year. There's no excuses. We should have been contending.
Yeah. Do you still watch every day? Every game?
Because of my work hours, I can't watch from Monday to Thursday, but I'll listen if I can, and then of course on weekends, and I'll still see highlights and whatever. And I follow closely during the week, and whatever happens, I hear about it, obviously, you know how people are. So, but no, I guess I can say fortunate maybe this year that I don't get to see every game, but, what I have seen, there's something different from this team compared to last year. And
so and tell me if you think the same way I do, because I'm sort of curious, and I can be accused of being a homer more often than not. So that's my disclaimer. But at the beginning of the season, I really felt like we didn't play, shitty, right? We weren't the shittiest team in the league. But what I did feel like, 2 things were happening. One is we weren't getting the calls, penalties. Mm-hmm. And then number 2 is I didn't think we were getting any puck luck. And then I always felt like let's say the first 10, 15 games, that led to a real lack of confidence for this team, which is kind of carried on. And my own, analysis of it is that, and I tweeted about this earlier today, is that, it's a coach's job to get that motivation and that confidence in the players. And as much as I'm sure we're all sick and tired of switching coaches year after year. I'm really down on the job McClellan has done, after the first 10, 15 games. I just haven't felt the passion there in him and in the players. And, I think that, barring personnel changes, it's up to the coach to get the best out of the players. Now, do you see it that way, or is there something else? I mean, I'm open to discussion on it. Obviously, yeah. What's your thought on how the season's gone?
Personally, I turned on Chiarelli long before I even had thoughts of, dismissing Todd. But there's been enough now that you can look at this and whatever. Like, there will always be people that question line combinations and, player choice on special teams. But I saw some stat the other night. Like, it's something about getting scored on the first shot. I think it's happened to us 8 times this year.
8 times. Yeah, we lead the league. Yeah,
and maybe there's more that goes into that, but I'm starting to feel like maybe more of this is about coaching, and I would hate to show him the door just because, we've seen the revolving door over the years. But at what point do you have to look at that? Like the penalty kill. Don't even get me started on that. But and even that, like, how do you explain the home and away split on that? It's so bizarre.
Well, and that, to me, right, that's where we get down to coaching, right? That confidence. Are you like me on Twitter when there's somebody, whether it's a media personality or an NHL player, when they like your tweet, it's like this validation, right? That you've said something that's, worthy of somebody. And I think a lot of guys are like that. Anyway, Jason Gregor was tweeting about, it's not up to the coaches to motivate the team. And I completely disagreed with that. And so what I did was I responded to his, that tweet, and I said, no, I disagree. In fact, I had seen a clip from Doug Gilmour about Pat Burns, and Doug Gilmour was talking about how Pat Burns just wanted to win. He had this desire to win, and the players were kind of scared of him, but at the same time, like they knew what he wanted. They were motivated to succeed, and that was part of, what got them to where they were at that point in time. And everybody knows Pat Burns is a Hall of Fame coach now.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, so I put that out there, and this morning I wake up to none other than Doug Gilmour, a validated account, liking that tweet. So I thought, well, we must have got something right.
Yeah, there's some onus on the players too, I think, to show up and be ready and all that. But we've all seen so much of the behind the scenes now of, like that HBO special where they get the cameras in the room and you see the coach giving his speech. And I can totally understand, where if a team has checked out and they don't want to play for that coach anymore, when they're giving those talks and making the decisions that they make, boy, if you don't want to play for that guy anymore, I can get how it would show on the ice. And maybe that's what we're seeing this year.
I don't disagree there.
Another good example of the coaching impact is Jeremy Roenick credits Mike Keenan for molding him into the physical player that he was. He's got a story in his first book about Keenan just grabbing him from behind on the bench and threatening him that if he passes up another check like that, he'll never see the ice. And I mean, we all know the type of player Roenick was. So,
no, outstanding.
Yeah. And I get that. Coaches aren't going to be crazy like that nowadays. It's a different era, but I absolutely believe that they play a part in the, not maybe the culture of the team, but just a whatever word you want to use, the swagger.
No, I think that's probably a good word. So what book was that?
Jeremy Roenick's first one. I can't remember what it's called. They all have the hockey books have strange names, some of them, but I know he's got two now. It's his first one where he goes in depth with that, and I always thought that was interesting.
Okay, good read.
Yeah,
overall.
One of my, I have probably a couple shelves of hockey books, and that's one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, awesome. Okay, well, I'm going to have to look that one up. I hated Roenick, but at the same time, I say that about all the players that I would love to have on my team.
Yeah, like he was a player, that guy.
Yeah,
he could do it all.
He was great. Okay, so what about Chiarelli? I mean,
how much time?
That's the big. How much time do we have? Do you think, though, like, if you were to make some changes right now and we're on the All-Star break, would you do it right away? What would you do? I mean, this is, I look at this team and the hard part is we've won 4 of the last 5. Now, if we didn't lose that Buffalo game 5-0, would we all be in this rage? I think we were in a rage prior, but what, if you had to, would you make a change right away? And if you would, I started with what about Chiarelli? What's your thoughts right now? What would you do if you were Cates and you had your hand on the button?
Well, I see the sense in waiting till the off season and just doing a full, what do they call it? A forensic audit of the whole organization. But what scares me is the trade that Peter might make to try to save his job or turn this team around. And we've pissed away so many assets already that I just don't know if we can survive another Eberle for Strome if we're trading somebody like Nuge or Clefbaum.
Oh, yeah.
It just, on defense, for me especially, something's got to give, because Darnell is going to get paid this summer. Maybe you can bridge him for a couple of years. But I mean, even that deal, does that start with a 4 now, a bridge deal, and then a long-term one starts with a 5? Is that the number? So we're looking at, Chris Russell. It always comes back to that for me. If he's our 5th or 6th best defenseman next year, making $4 million, and you can't move him, or it's very difficult.
Yeah,
like that's a big problem. I don't understand why he signed that deal, or offered that deal, I should say, knowing that Nurse was about to get paid. And Sekera, is maybe he the guy that you can move out and make room. I tweeted today that if Brandon Davidson isn't part of our 3rd pairing next year, I'm going to be furious, because, like, forget about this being just a great story. We should have never traded him in the first place. Like, to me, this is where he belongs. He can contribute here. He's going to be cheap for a while, you would think.
So I'll give him the break there, right? I mean, part of that trade had to do with the expansion draft, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
And it's great that we got him back.
Yeah.
But it's a crowded blue line, and this core that we have, these 6 guys, look what they did last year, and maybe you can get enough out of them for another year, but just the dollars don't add up, and I'm afraid of what he's going to do to make money, or make cap space.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. There are a couple things. So maybe before I move on to that, back to my original question. If you then were to do something right now, would you move Chiarelli, or would you wait?
Maybe I wouldn't fire him till the summer, but I would also not let him make any deals. And I'm sure Cates has that power. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would say you sit tight and we'll get to you in June. But you know what? I'll criticize most of his body of work here, but so far I have liked our draft picks, and maybe let him have one more draft, and then I would want a new GM in place before free agency, at least. But then the question is, who's that guy? Like, how many are out there? It would not be popular for obvious reasons, but is Bill Guerin ready? Because he's assistant GM in Pittsburgh.
Fair enough.
That would be fun.
Yeah, and he's got history with the organization.
Mm-hmm. But of course, there'd be the old boys on the bus thing again, and that's fair. Like I understand that conversation comes up, but yeah, I don't know, but I would be looking at changes after this year. You can't just leave it, in my opinion.
Yeah. You know, I've got the same concerns, right? Which is, you know, what kind of trades are you going to make? And your Twitter handle, of course, being Nuge's teddy bear, you know, Nuge comes to mind, and partly because he's been on, like, that's been the thing on TSN, you know, the last couple of days is if Chiarelli makes a trade, he needs to win this one. And then they point to Nuge. And, you know, if you take out this injury, which is really unfortunate, he's been one of our better, more consistent players this year. And, you know, if we are going to trade him, oh man, I just don't know what we could get in return that would be, you know, anywhere near what he's worth. And then, you know, to your point, right, we're going to have to pay Nurse next year. I think, you know, and I'll give, I try to be objective. I'll give Chiarelli the pass on some things. I don't think that a lot of people expected Nurse to be where he's at today. And I did, though. I really thought, especially after his performance in the World Juniors, I always thought this is a kid that is going to be a first line pairing and is just going to be, you know, a real tough person to play against. And he's a horse. He's been all of that this year.
But yeah, did you think he would be this good this soon? And maybe when Chiarelli extended Russell, he thought he had a bit more time before Darnell was going to get paid.
I think so. I mean, that's the only thing I can think. And we had a good discussion about it earlier today, which was, you know, what are the things that Chiarelli was counting on, and he just, like, let's be fair, everything he expected never came to pass, right? So I think he thought the team could get by without Sekera. Never happened, right? In fact, we were dead in the water. I think he thought, to your point, Nurse wasn't going to be as good as he is this year. I think he thought Benning would be much better than he is this year. I think he thought Clefbaum would be much better than he is this year. All of those things, you know, I think he figured, you know, there's the disconnect between McClellan and Chiarelli, obviously, because McClellan never played Jokinen. Right? Like he just, you know, it was obviously not his pick. He put Puljujarvi down to the minors early. You know, it just seems like the two of them are not on the same page, and Chiarelli just guessed wrong on all of the assumptions he made that this team would be good. And I have a hard time blaming him completely, because everybody picked this team to win the Stanley Cup, or at least be in the finals this year. So, you know, he wasn't the only one. My problem with him is not necessarily what he did in the off season, but what he didn't do early enough. Because there were a lot of us that, you know, and we're not necessarily hockey gods out here, but there were a lot of us that thought he should have done something a lot earlier to make up for what was
absolutely. And he has been sitting there this whole time with how much cap space? That's
8 million. It was about 8 million, right?
At the first sign of regression and trouble, pull the trigger. But even then, if you want to go the free agent route, okay, by then it's slim pickings. How good would Vanek look like the year he's had in Vancouver, even as a second liner with us? Yeah, that would have been fine by me. Give him 1 year, 3 million, and if this still happens with him, then that's a nice return at the deadline. I think Vancouver hit the jackpot with that, because with the numbers he's putting up, that's going to be a nice return, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's probably one of the criticisms too, is he had $8 million to play with. At the very least, he could have made a big signing, right? A $2 or $3 million a year guy that just for the year, a 1 year. Instead, Jokinen was our big signing.
Yeah, or another way to go, don't rush the Eberle trade. And I know that most of the fan base wanted him gone after the playoffs, but if you're the GM, you can't really care what the fans think. The numbers suggested that he was going to have a rebound year, and he has, unfortunately, on a different team. But, if we had him instead of Strome, and then, of course, the time comes when, you have to move him. But maybe at that point, you get a much better return than just Strome, too.
So I thought the Eberle trade, though, and this is maybe, and this does dial into what I thought Chiarelli's biggest mistake was. I'm all right with the Eberle for Strome trade as long as he does something at that point in time to make up for it in this year, the year of the entry level contract, and he didn't. So without spending any of that extra $8 million, then that Eberle trade is garbage
100%.
in my mind. Right? Agree. But if he had spent that, then I think we're safe to say, we won't know. We won't know what the outcome was. But if he at least did something with that extra money, instead he sat on it. And I don't think, given Kate's bought, the most expensive piece of real estate in Los Angeles, I don't think, Kate's needed to save $8 million this year. So I don't know what the deal was.
Yeah, I mean, had Eberle turned into Strome and maybe a year of Vanek, totally different story. I think we'd be seeing a little bit less of Eberle on our timelines. Just the venom, and I've been guilty of that too. It ticks me off when I see him and Barzal connecting for yet another goal, and that's just frustration at this point in the season. And I get that he had to go eventually, but it just seemed like it could have been done in a better way. But what can you do? We're just fans.
Yeah, we don't, unfortunately, we don't have much say, do we? We're running close to the half hour, which I let you know, I think is about as long as I like to run things. But, give me some final thoughts in terms of, how do you see the rest of the year going? Do you see the potential for the Oilers to still make a run at it? And, that's a long shot. But what are your final thoughts on this so far?
I hate to say it, but I've already checked out as far as the optimism goes. I'm already thinking draft and beyond. I don't think at all we're even going to get close to a spot. I think within the next month, we're going to see Maroon, Letestu, and hopefully Camilleri go for picks and prospects. I think that's the smart thing to do at this point. We have to get something for these players. We have wasted so many assets, not just the Reinhardt picks, but even, a second for Chiarelli, that whole compensation bullshit. We need every asset we can get, in my opinion, at this point. So you clear those players out. I don't want to say tank, but we maybe fall a couple more spots, and then you look at the draft, and the guy I want is Brady Tkachuk.
Yeah, man, I would. Just the name brings shivers to me. But
imagine if we get him, what that means, not just for the Battle of Alberta, but there's Connor's left winger to go with him and Puljujarvi for a decade plus. Wouldn't that be something? Yeah.
No, I'm a big Tkachuk fan. I hate Matthew Tkachuk, and again, and I say that with the most respect. Any of the guys that I've hated in this league, I would have had them on my team in a second. I'd like to think I know, there's something to be said about tanking at the end and getting a good draft pick. But I would really like to. I would really like to see us close the year off well. You never know, right? I mean, what does the trade deadline do to the psyche of the team, and do they come back? But I just don't want them to lay off the gas just because I'd prefer that they went into the end of the season feeling well about themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. That's I don't want this season to leave a mark on some of these young players, especially. And of course, I would love nothing more for a historic run and then another playoff run in the spring. But I haven't seen it this year. I don't think many of us, I think even the most optimistic fans at this point understand that maybe last year was a bit of an illusion. I think we overachieved a bit, and there's the perfect health that went into it, near perfect health, and a couple other factors. But I think you just gotta get to the end of the season and reevaluate some things, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I think you're right, and it'd be nice. It'd be great if we can finish the season off well, and everybody gets healthy again. Clefbaum seems to be hurt. Of course, Nuge. What day are we on now?
Oh, yeah, 7 or 8. I have
7 or 8
those coming, by the way.
Yeah, you're gonna have to update that soon. So. A couple things before we leave. Just let everybody know we've got, and you might want to tune in as well, Mason, which is we've got a prospect show coming up with Beer League Heroes and the Oil Night. If you don't know, Sean from the Oil Night is based in London, Ontario, and is a big fan of the OHL. So he's got some insight, and he goes out to a lot of games there in terms of what's happening there. Beer League Heroes, I find him fascinating. He's based in Taiwan, and he watches every game.
I had no idea.
He blogs. Yeah, I know. It was the craziest thing. So he's a huge fan. He's originally from Camrose, I think. And of course he does. I've got a Fuck Kessler shirt.
I saw that.
That awesome. I just ordered from him. Yeah, and so I can't wait for the next Ducks game. But he does that, and he does a blog, and he's been under fire lately for defending Chiarelli. I don't think that he's defending Chiarelli and that he'd like to keep him, but he's defending him and that it's not all his fault. And I think he agrees with me. Coaching seems to be my number one thing, and I think he agrees on that. So we've got that coming up. I've got the mega thread guy, Mike Dursta. Yeah, he's coming on. And then I don't know if you know Lars Kaliu. He goes by Extra Lars.
I think so.
He's actually yeah, he's a professional comedian and also a friend of mine from university.
Oh, cool.
And so I'm going to have him on. I'm hoping, and he's agreed to it, but David Staples also said he'd do an interview. So we're going to get him on. We'll see. He hasn't scheduled yet, but he said he would do that. And then I'm going to do 30 podcasts with other podcasts around the league. I've got the Hurricanes already scheduled, one of the Hurricanes podcasts and the Columbus Blue Jackets podcast scheduled. So we're going to do just a little one-on-one with guys from around the league. Yeah, so lots of fun things happening. Mason, if we could get you back again, I'd love to have you back. Just let me know.
Anytime.
Yeah, it was fun talking hockey with you, and let's hope that the end of the season turns out well for us.
We shall see. Yeah, time will tell. And this was fun, so thanks for having me on. And half an hour just isn't long enough, so I'll definitely come back if you'll have me.
Yeah, I do think I might change the format at some point to just do a little break, and people can choose themselves whether or not they'll listen to part 1 and part 2. But no, it was great having you, and you're right, half an hour is just never long enough. So this is Mason. You can follow him on Twitter at Nugeteddy. So Nuge Teddy. He'll be giving updates every day on what RNH is doing during his IR. Any last words?
Shout out to Nuge. It's been a good season as far as him proving that I think he's a core piece for this team, and let's hope he's here in a year.
Yeah, agreed. All right. Have a great night, and thank you.
See ya.